So I just finished playing Pokemon Neo Y, the ROM hack of Pokemon Y, and I gotta say it did a lot of things to Pokemon that I think are desirable, that make the game more interesting and challenging, and it would be really great to see in the future of official releases. I spent a lot of time trying to write out my feelings, trying to detail all the little things that they did, all the little things that they did that I didn't like, but it all came out very detail-oriented, obsessive, and autistic. And trust me, the spurgy man-child nature of playing a Pokemon ROM hack for the 3DS, a system which took me 13 hours to figure out how to work, it's not lost upon me. I'm very aware of how not important this is, of how not relevant Pokemon Neo Y is to the public at large, but I played it. See, because I trapped myself in this prideful, arbitrary sense of empowerment, I said, oh, I can mod my 3DS, I can do that, and then I spent 13 hours straight in a day figuring out how to do it. And if you're gonna spend that much time doing it, you might as well follow through and do it and play the games that you earned doing that. So I have my physical card of Pokemon Y, and I legally, that's Legally. There's no I in legal. I modded my game Pokemon Y to apply Pokemon Neo Y, and just to see how much fun it would be just to do the things. And it did the things, and it did them good. A simple list of all the changes on the hack's website details what it does. There's a very simple bulleted list of changes that Pokemon Neo Y applies to the main game, and I'm going to read those out loud to you, and then I'm going to try and convince you why they are good and why they are important and why they would be desirable in the next official Pokemon release. I don't expect this to happen. I know I don't expect this to happen. This game series is for children. I get it. It's for children. It's not for me. You don't go to Nintendo games looking for a challenge. I get it. But I did it anyway. Instead of playing a new game, I just played the old one again, but harder this time. The first change here is a more consistent but much harder level curve to greatly increase difficulty. Now, Pokemon has been a significantly unchallenging game since about 5th gen. Well, alright. The first Pokemon game you play is going to be hard since you don't know the system, and it's going to get easier over time as you play it, but generations 3 through 5 were beginner to intermediate. They had a few challenging moments. Everyone remembers Pokemon Platinum's Team Galactic leader. Everyone remembers Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. Well, what do they remember about it? I just remember it being a little bit challenging. Was that game challenging? I don't know. 4th gen, 3rd gen. 3rd gen was hard because May and all of that. Battling May on the Mauville Road was always a challenge. It was there. It was 2003. Nintendo games were allowed to be hard in 2003, But Pokemon Neo Y, the highest level of the Elite Four's Pokemon in Pokemon Neo Y is 90. A common Pokemon game will take your Pokemon to about level 60, tops. But this took you to level 90. This game used almost the entire level spectrum in the main game. Whereas Pokemon proper chooses to save levels 60 through 100 to the post-game players. However, there's a bit of a disparity there in most post-game Pokemon content, and this I experienced this in Final Fantasy VII as well, where every level is important from level 1 to the final boss's level, which is 60-ish. But after that, there's a gap. So in Pokemon X and Y, you could say that there is a gap from level 65 to level 100 that's ultimately meaningless. You're not going to gain very much by having a level 80 Pokemon that you wouldn't get having a level 100 Pokemon, and it's just it's a very retarded, pointless place to be, and it's less than cool. So Pokemon Neo Y uses the entire level spectrum. You get the full experience. You get the experience of beginner. You get the experience of intermediate. You get the experience of just recently fully evolved. You get the experience of the fucking war-trained veterans at level 90 of what your moveset is. You are optimized to perfection. I say that while my Houndoom still knows Crunch and I never got Dark Pulse, the TM. But that's cool. That's cool. Pokemon has been easy. We've seen remakes such as Pokemon Omega Ruby lower the levels of gym leaders and such and all that. So just making the enemies a little higher level in the RPG sense makes them harder. It doesn't feel artificial because if they are higher level, they'll give more experience and then you'll get higher level. I don't know. See, this is the thing. I don't feel like I'm cutting to the heart of this. I feel like I am failing to cut to the emotional core, the point of this. But we're gonna keep going. We're gonna cut to the heart, even if we miss it completely. Next item. many trainers now have a greater amount of Pokemon with custom movesets, higher IVs, and items. Okay, now IVs are not something you want to think about in PvE because it gets obsessive and it gets annoying and it takes way too long just to catch a Pokemon. But when everyone was playing Pokemon Sun and Moon, we all noticed something, that even though the trainers had a nice, pleasant variety of Pokemon, they didn't have very many of them. So you'd go through a little text box, a little cutscene, a little youngster Joey wants to fight, only to fight one Pokemon, and then be given a little bit more text, be given some money and a little cutscene and a transition, and you're back. All you did was beat up one Pokemon, and he was like maybe one level ahead of the wild ones. This is not even good. So when trainers have a variety in the number of Pokemon, that also increases the variety of types of battles, of the types of experiences you'll be getting. If a trainer has very few Pokemon, you would expect that single Pokemon to be very strong, because naturally, if you played with one Pokemon, that Pokemon would overlevel. Alternatively, if you saw a trainer with 6 Pokemon, you'd expect them all to be even and kind of weaker, since when you train a 6 Pokemon team, they share the EXP and they level up more slowly. That you can see this in Pokemon Breeders in Route 119, I think, of Hoenn, the breeding route, the daycare center route. But in Sun and Moon, you just get 1 or 2 Pokemon. In late game, they'll get like 3 or 4 at the end, maybe. It's just not good enough. Trainers don't feel like a challenge when they don't catch Pokemon. Catching Pokemon is the point here, remember? Gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all. But no one does it. No one does it. I mean, I don't do it, except as a side thing, but I get 6. I hit the cap. I get a well-rounded team, except I don't because I don't have a solid water type. So it would be great to see trainers with more Pokemon and actually use hold items. Oh no, you can give Pokemon Sun and Moon a nice condescending pat on the back for using the red card item and for giving you 4 Oricocos with focus sashes, but who cares? Like, that's very... They did it a little bit, but they didn't go very far with it. You know, look, there's so many held items in the game. Every different kind of berry. Raise your stats, heal statuses, Chesto Resto. You can do Focus Sash, you can do like Silk Scarf, you can do Bright Powder if you're a dick, you can do Weakness Policy, you can have like a battery that raises your special attack if you're hit by an electric type move. You can have all these items. You can have a Shed Shell, you can have an O-Ring. I think that's a electronics thing. Pokemon is bloated with items and Pokemon and moves and abilities and stuff, and barely any of them get used by the main game compared to how much there are. So many hidden abilities, so many unused Pokemon, all the same ones over and over again, and this ROM hack, Pokemon Neo Y, utilizes the Pokemon that are forgotten, puts them back into the game, and it's refreshing to see them. It's nice to see them. There's so much variety in Pokemon in this game. You will see the same Pokemon twice, but, you know, you'll see a lot of new ones too. You'll see all 721 of them, maybe. Okay, well, I hit a dead end, so next one. Gym leaders have been significantly upgraded. They get progressively tougher in terms of amount of Pokemon, IVs, Mega Evolution, movesets, and items. So the first gym leader has 4 Pokemon, the second has 5, and then the third has 6, and it's 6 the whole way through. But not only that, I'll get to that part later, actually. Gym leaders are the climax of the Pokemon games. If they're not a challenge, then the Pokemon game isn't fun. The gym leaders should be this stone-cold character, they're boss battles. They should be a boss battle. In a regular game, a boss battle is a giant robot or something huge, Metal Gear. But gym leaders in Pokemon have been reduced to, I'm a person with a unique design and 2 or 3 Pokemon to my name that are at least evolved. And in Sun and Moon, they get the normal EMZ. They get the Z items and nothing else. And that does make them tougher. The gym leaders are decent. What are they? The Kahunas or whatever? They're decent in Sun and Moon, actually. They don't have very many Pokemon, and that's disappointing, but they generally have 3+, and they have a decent variety, and they have decent movesets. Notice I'm using the word decent a lot. It's decent. Pokemon Sun and Moon is decent. I haven't played it again. I wouldn't play it again, but I played it once. Okay, actually using Mega Evolution. This is a good point. Pokemon X and Y specifically introduced Mega Evolution, used it as its gimmick, so it would be really nice to see that gimmick used in more than a few instances, so that's good. Champion used it, the tutorial guy used it, and then Lysandra used it in the final battle. But here, wild Pokemon will hold Mega Stones for the sake of you being able to acquire the Mega Stones. Tough trainers will use them. Every single Flare boss has a Mega Stone. It's super good. Super good. Doesn't feel overwhelming. The Mega Stones aren't that special. The Mega Stones are not special enough to be exclusive. So like some trainers can have them, or your rival can get them. I think all of your rivals get it in Neo Y. Maybe I cannot confirm that currently. But every important trainer gets one. Every decent trainer, every halfway decent trainer gets one. I had a wild Ampharos Mega Evolve on me. That was eventful and fun and interesting. And it didn't detract from the gimmick because it's utilizing the mechanic that the game introduced. Oh, we were talking about gym leaders though. Frick. All the gym leaders in this game are super cool. They're really fun to fight for one reason that I'm going to get onto later, but the first reason is that they are decked out to the brim with Pokemon, complete movesets, complete with coverage, complete with strategies. They all have held items, and they all have variety, dude. I saw there were at least 2 Rotoms on the gyms, and it honestly got a bit obnoxious to see them, but that's funny. That's funny that they all use Rotom because Rotom can transform into different forms and have different types. The gym leaders are tough, and that makes them climactic. That makes them fun to fight. I'm missing something here. I'm heartless right now. Next item. There are a greater number of rotation, double, and triple battles. Now this is surprisingly the best thing ever. Let me tell you why. Random trainers walk up to you and you send out your starter and you use kill 3 times in a row and then you win. That's not that interesting. And it's only made a little bit better by Pokemon variety. But what if a trainer randomly walks up to you and he says some bullshit dialogue, and then you'll get sent into a rotation battle with him. He's got like all 3 starters and you've got whatever. So now you have to think about Pokemon battling in a whole new way that you haven't before, that you almost have never done before. And it caught you by surprise because he didn't telegraph his rotation battle. You just did it. So these developers introduced these new battle mechanics and almost never use them is what I'm trying to say. Like Hoenn barely ever used double battles. Hoenn, 96% of the battles were single, and then you got a few doubles. And then up in Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon X and Y, the amount of double battles are like next to zero. Triple and rotation battles are non-existent. They were like in a gimmick house set off to the side in the 8th gym city, forgotten about for all eternity. But integrating them into the main game actually made the main game way more interesting, and it kept me on my toes, and it made me think about battling in a whole new and fresh way every time. It's one thing to say, oh, I'll have this Pokemon out, and then I'll have these moves on him, and then he'll just handle what comes at him, and if he can't handle it, we'll switch out. Well, this guy sends you into a double battle, so now your Pokemon in your second slot gets sent out. You weren't even thinking about your second slot, were you? You were just like, uh-oh, you're caught with your pants down. You got to think about how to handle this battle. Are you going to waste a turn switching out while you get bullied, or are you going to focus your fire on one Pokemon, or are you going to spread the damage evenly, or are you going to try to cripple them, or are you going to try to set up? It's just the best. Just the other battle formats, they enhance Pokemon battling a lot. They shouldn't replace single battles, but they should be used liberally to enhance the experience and to increase the variety of the experience. Unless you're an idiot who hates all these double rotation and triple battles, because you do have to have an actual party with decent synergy to do it or something. I don't know, maybe that's just not your thing. Or maybe you're just a big person. Alright, next change. All 721 Pokemon now available in one playthrough. All areas now offer much greater variety. Let me level with you for a second. You think Pokemon Sun and Moon had a lot of variety, but they leaned back on Kanto a lot. The first island in Pokemon Sun and Moon, Meme Island, Melee Island, has Grimer and Magnemite and Slowpoke and Caterpie and maybe Weedle. Just a whole bunch of Kanto Pokemon. Alolan forms are exclusively Kanto altering. So like Game Freak really just has their hands on the nuts of adult Pokemon fans who grew up with first generation and are just milking that to no end. But you know what would be really refreshing to see in a patch of tall grass in Pokemon? A Starly, the 4th generation bird Pokemon. You know, that Pokemon seems pretty forgotten about at this point. Hasn't been included much. You know, Pokemon X and Y included Zigzagoon, and Zigzagoon is now my best friend, and I love him, and that's great, yes. But, how often are you gonna see a Burmy in the tall grass? Where can I find the Deerling? They're just not there. Game Freak has a certain preference towards certain Pokemon that they will include, and a certain Pokemon that they think just don't fit for this area. Or maybe, no, Game Freak, I guarantee you, Game Freak has a design document that says certain Pokemon should be certain rarities, should be certain levels of inaccessible. Aipom is one of the least accessible Pokemon you could ask for. In Gold and Silver, you have to headbutt a tree, certain special trees, and it's only a 20% chance of finding him. In 3rd gen, I don't even remember how you get him. Like post-game, 4th gen, he's only available during honey trees, and in order to utilize honey trees, you need to put honey on the tree, wait 24 hours, and then look at the tree, and you get 1 encounter. Depending on your location, depending on the percentage chance, that Aipom's going to take a long time to get. Aipom is an extremely rare and inaccessible Pokemon, and because of that, I'm just not going to use him in a playthrough. I'm just not. I'm never going to look at Aipom and catch him, and I'm never going to make friends with Aipom, and I'm never going to realize how much of a powerhouse, how much of a true hero Ambipom really is, because he's just not accessible. But Pokemon Neo Y comes in and puts Aipom in Route 3 at like a 5% chance, because every Pokemon is like a 5 or 10% chance because there are just so many of them. And I catch an Aipom and I use him, and he's my best friend, and he turns out to be one of the strongest and fastest and Pokemon with the best moveset and best ability ever. He's just the best. He's simply good. He was my hero. He leveled up faster than everyone else. When I finished the game, Ambipom was level like 98 and everyone else was like high 80s. That's not because I used him more. That's because he leveled up faster and he kicked ass. Alright, I used him a little bit more because he kicked ass. I fell back on him, but this is the best. Like, so my point here is that Pokemon should be a bit more accessible than you think. Pokemon Sun and Moon make the rare and interesting Pokemon so hard to get that I don't want them. It's kind of sucks. Kind of sucks a big dong when you go fishing in Pokemon Sun and Moon and you get an 80% chance of a Magikarp and a 19% chance of a Wailmer and then a 1% chance of that weird little anchor thing. But if you buy max repels, and if you surf in circles, or if you go out and into the building over and over again, if you grind and waste your time, you'll get a bubbling spot, which you can fish next to if you don't accidentally run into it and make it disappear. And that will give you a 10% chance of the rare Pokemon, and then a 70% chance of Wailmer, and then a 20% chance of Magikarp or whatever. See what I'm going for here? That's not good enough. That's not good enough. It takes so much effort to get these rare Alolan Pokemon that I will never use them. I don't care about them. Into the PC, into the box, into the garbage with you. Not going to do that. But, you know, Aipom's right there in the tall grass. I lowered his HP and I caught him and I used him. Do you think the Pokemon should be kind of rare? I don't know, man. Maybe some Pokemon, but certainly not Aipom. I don't know what I'm going for here. See, this is like this is the man-child spur coming along. It's like Pokemon has so many subsystems and so many things that it's hard to say what's good game design and what isn't universally. I just have to spit my preference and hope people understand. The next item is, all previously unavailable Pokemon are now included. For example, Rattata. Now again, I already went through this point saying that Pokemon that Game Freak doesn't like to use, putting them in the game makes it really refreshing. Seeing that Starly, seeing that Burmy, seeing that Deerling, seeing Blitzel, seeing Shinx. It's refreshing. These Pokemon aren't terrible. Like, I don't have a strong preference in generational Pokemon design. And if anyone's going to play a Pokemon ROM hack, if anyone is a continued fan of the series, they probably won't either. Like, why would you play Pokemon Sun and Moon and then only catch the Kanto ones because they're the only good ones? Like, just play Red and Blue at that point. I don't know where I'm going with this. This is like, it's nothing. Anyway, most Pokemon now have easy access to their hidden abilities. Who cares? Many Pokemon have had their stats slightly edited to make them competitively viable. Some also have had their typing edited, e.g. Golduck is now Water Psychic. This is an important point. Pokemon Sun and Moon attempted to amend certain Kanto Pokemon by altering their stats and typings into Alolan forms, and they failed spectacularly. For example, Raticate. Raticate is a Pokemon I made friends with because I caught him and I thought he had a cute mustache and he was my best friend and stuff. I trained that Raticate with the expectation that he would be fast, if nothing else, because that's what Raticate is. Its base speed is like 90 or 97 or something. That's a vanilla Raticate, that is. And he's got some decent normal stab, so he's pretty usable, right? But Alolan Raticate lowers his base speed by X numbers, either 10, 15, or 20, by the base number, and then he raises his defenses by 10 each. Now that sounds fair on paper. But here's what it is in practice. Raticate has gone from a frail, speedy Pokemon, a bit of a glass cannon, if you will, to a slow Pokemon who is still frail and still can't take a hit. Like this stat change, adding base 10 defense and special defense does not make a Pokemon bulky. His base defenses are like 70 or 80 or something. They're low. They're not even good. And he lost speed, which is more important than all the other stats to make up for it. So Raticate's Alolan Raticate is useless. Also, the dark normal typing gives him a lot more weaknesses than it does resistances. That may or may not be true. It's got a double fighting weakness. Do you think that plus 10 defense is going to help him out to take a fairy hit or a fighting hit or anything like that? It's not. A lot of Alolan changes are like that. They're just very, very minor. They're very safe changes. They don't want to break their precious balance system. But these ROM hackers, they know how to make useless, unremarkable Pokemon remarkable again. For example, this isn't Pokemon Neo Y, but like the Drayano hacks, which I hold in high regard. They turned Farfetch'd from some useless thing with like piss poor stats that no one cares about into like a glass cannon Archeops clone, but he's fighting flying, but he has Defeatist ability. So his base attack is like 125 and his speed is like over 100, but he's got Defeatist, so he's got a big drawback, but he's Farfetch'd and you love him. So you're gonna catch Farfetch'd and you're gonna use him and he'll actually be useful. Yay! I don't remember the changes. I'm gonna look up some changes. I'm gonna look up some Pokemon Neo Y stat changes for you. So they changed the base stat of Pikachu from speed 90 to speed base 110. And that's that's a pretty good change. Who would complain about making Pikachu a little bit faster and a little bit more frail? They lowered his defenses but raised his speed. Who would complain about that? Who would have a problem with that? Pikachu was just made a little bit more useful at a cost. He's a glass cannon now, but he already was a glass cannon because he's Pikachu, and it's alright. Okay, this one's a little... Yeah, some of these changes are kind of weird. So, like, Raichu has base special attack of 90, and they raised that to 100. That's okay, that's just that little push that Raichu needed to become significant again. But his base speed is 110, and they changed that base speed to 140. 146, actually. That's towing the line here. That's gonna throw some things out of whack. That might knock over the Jenga tower here. But he is more powerful at that point. And I don't think it's gonna break the game to give Raichu a little bit more special attack, just to make him usable. He's usable. Oh. I'm trying to find like a universally useless Pokemon and make it useful again, but all I have are like kind of useful Pokemon that are just made a little bit more useful, right? Very subtle changes. A lot of the times you'll see Pokemon with base attack of like 90 rising to a base of like 100 to 115. And what that is that's playing with our expectations here. As a competitive Pokemon battler, I assume that a base stat of lower than 100 equals useless. In PvE, you can get away with a base speed of like 90 plus. That's pretty good. But overall, if the base stat isn't above 100, very unremarkable Pokemon. So they would just make a stat that's close to 100 but kind of low, and they'd raise it above 100. They wouldn't make it like ridiculous, even though they do sometimes, but they just make it useful. So like you don't expect Venomoth to be a powerhouse in that base 90 special attack, but that base 90 goes up to 110, and that's okay. That's okay. No one's gonna base 110 special attack is not gonna break the game, but it's gonna make Venomoth a bit more desirable. Power creep dangers, right? Power creep. But just how many Pokemon are just NU and RU and UU, and how many tiers are below OU? Yeah, Farfetch'd. So in Neo Y, not in the Drayano hack that they gave Farfetch'd, they changed his base speed from 60 to 110. Gave him a little bit more defense and a little bit more attack. His base attack is 80 in this hack and Neo Y, and that's not broken, but it's usable. Okay, one more, and then I'll be done here. Yes, Seaking with base speed 68 goes up to 80, and the base attack from 92 going up to 102. It's just a little nudges in that direction. Basically what I'm saying is, Game Freak, you should break the game. You should break the game. You should change all their stats. You should make all the stats overpowered. You should turn Pokemon into Brawl Minus. The next change is a lot of Pokemon have their movesets edited. Ooh, that's a big one. Shallow movesets are the death of Pokemon, after all. You can have a Jolteon in 2nd gen, and you're still going to give it Pin Missile or Double Kick because it has nothing else to do. I feel like this is a basic point. Give Pokemon just like coverage moves such as like Icy Wind or Bulldoze or Strength or Rock Tomb, except Rock Tomb that has power 65 and 95 and not the power 50 Rock Tomb. Little things like that will make a Pokemon a little bit more desirable so that they're not stuck with Tackle and Headbutt and Facade and Crunch. I'm looking over this list and I'm feeling like I made my point. Somewhere along there, I made my point. I'll just use this time to criticize Pokemon Sun and Moon for lacking polish, I guess. So the box system in Pokemon X and Y was polished to a mirror sheen, the touchscreen was incredibly responsive and quick, and everything looked smooth and nice and pleasant. But in Pokemon Sun and Moon, the sprites look a lot smaller and uglier, and they kind of stick between tiles, and when you drag them, they move a little bit slowly, and you're not sure where they're going to drop on the screen, and it feels like poop compared to the last ones, so it's not as cool. It's not even as cool. It's cool that when you boot up the PC, it just goes straight to move Pokemon, because that's the only function a PC is good for, yes. But why would we downgrade like that? Pokemon X and Y had the greatest multiplayer system in any Pokemon game, you could say. The little yellow screen, the PSS, was the quickest, simplest, and most convenient solution to battling, trading, Wonder Trade, little shouts, powers, and all of that, because you could do it anywhere, and there was no transition, there was no cutscenes, there was just, you hit the button and it happens. And it almost happens automatically as you go. If you have the wireless on, you will just connect to some people, and they'll shout at you, and they'll challenge you, and you'll say, yes, that's good. That's good. Pokemon Sun and Moon threw the best system out the window and just reinvented the wheel, but worse. So in Pokemon Sun and Moon, you go to this paradise place. You go to this castle place. It's basically like the Isle in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, where you walk around in a circle and indulge in these soulless, weird shops that augment your Pokemon in like the subtle ways, like the EVs and IVs kind of way, but they don't do it clearly. They do it in very roundabout ways, which would take hours and hours and hours to even get any satisfying results from. And so you go into there and you'll get a bunch of strangers who just litter your hallway. They just litter the place, and they say really pointless, meaningless dialogue about Pokemon, such as, I hail from the Hoenn region, or I like to throw Pokeballs. It's very overstimulating with pointless information. It's sensory overload. It's bad. And you have this touchscreen menu where you can do all your functions such as trading and battling, but none of them are labeled or marked. So it's you have to touch every button individually to learn what they do, and then you get to do it, and then you got to organize with your buddy on Skype and Discord outside of the game. You need an outside of the game tool just to organize in the game, and then you can do your thing. So you need to press X, scroll to the menu that says multiplayer, hit it, suffer a black loading screen, suffer a little animation transition of entering the place, and then you get to touch the item that is the thing you want to do, and then you do the thing. There's just way more steps, and it's not good. Anyway, if there's anything to be learned from this, it's that Pokemon is kind of bloated with stuff that just goes under the cutting board for the sake of making it a coherent game in the slightest. And you probably should play more games. You should play Pokemon. You should play not Pokemon. You should play all the games. Try not to obsess over one to such a degree that I have obsessed over Pokemon, because it gets bad. It gets old fast. The moment you realize what natures do, then every single time you catch a Pokemon in a playthrough, you'll notice that it has the complete opposite nature of what you want, that it lowers attack and raises special defense, and you will go insane, and then you'll catch the Pokemon again, and then you'll soft reset, and you'll catch the Pokemon again until it has a decent nature, just to make that minute little difference. It's not fun. It takes the fun out of things, boys and girls. It takes the fun out of things when I feel obligated to super train all my Pokemon on the touchscreen for 3 hours. But yeah, I didn't even learn how to hyper train Pokemon in Sun and Moon because that layout was so bad. But gall dang, Pokemon is just, it has taken my soul, and I wish to be freed.